In today's video, we're making our way to early NHL playoff predictions. Who gets in? Who wins the Stanley Cup? I'll give you my early predictions coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we made some prediction videos before the season got started, making a lot of what I called bold predictions. Some of them were team-based, some individual, whatnot. Today I wanted to do my really early NHL playoff predictions, and I'll probably do this a few times throughout the season just to kind of give an updated opinion on what I think is going to go down. But as of right now, like I said, it's early for sure. There's bound to be a few of these things that are probably going to be off a bit, but this is just my opinion, just for fun. Leave your predictions down below. If you disagree, you agree, that's all fine and dandy. Just let me know what you think down in the comments, and we can discuss it here in the community and see what everybody seems to think. So let's get started first with the Western Conference. Now, there was one prediction I made in my before the season one where I made the 32 predictions that I am going to change my mind on already. Everything else I'm going to kind of stick with for the time being, but it's not for nothing else except for injury related. This team is absolutely decimated, but I did predict that in the Central Division they'd be putting 5 teams into the playoffs, and I'm sticking with that, except I no longer think right now that Utah is going to be able to get in. I do think they had a good start, but they are decimated on their blue line. We've seen the goalies, especially Connor Ingram, have a rough game here recently too. The blue line's not quite as strong, and some of the other teams have surprised us both positively and negatively, and I think it's going to have a major impact on Utah. I'd love to see them get in their first season. I think it'd be a great story, and it'd be great for the fan base, new ownership. But I think it's going to be very, very tough right now with losing two of their top 4 blue liners. I think that just about any team would have a tough time winning. So now I'm going to give you my predictions. Start with the Central Division. Like I said, 5 teams will get in. I'm going to predict that the Chicago Blackhawks, the St. Louis Blues, and unfortunately Utah are going to miss the playoffs. Utah, I think, can manage to get close, but not quite all the way. The 5 teams in order. First place, I'm predicting the Dallas Stars. Second place, I'm going to say the Winnipeg Jets. Third place, the Nashville Predators. Fourth place, the Colorado Avalanche, and fifth place, the Minnesota Wild. Now, it's a little bit different than how things sit here today. I know Nashville started 0-5. Now they won a game, and I know that no team has ever started 0-5 and gotten into the playoffs. So it's going to have a big, tall task ahead. But honestly, I think if there's one team that can do it, I think it is the Predators. They spent a lot of money on a lot of talent. They are rumored to be looking to make maybe a trade because there is one piece I think that they're kind of missing there down the middle. They've got great defense. They have a great all-star goaltender and a ton of talented scorers up front. I think they will get it figured out, in all honesty. So Dallas, Winnipeg, Nashville, Colorado, Minnesota is the 5 teams I have entering the playoffs from the Central. Now in the Pacific, I'm going to predict that, no big surprise here, but San Jose, Anaheim, Seattle, Calgary, and LA, unfortunately, will not make it in this year. I'm predicting that Edmonton will win the division. I know they had a bad start. I still very much believe in this team, though. Edmonton, Vancouver, and Vegas will be your top 3. And like I said, I think both of the wildcard teams are going to come from the Central this year. We're going to see like a team like the LA Kings, who've been made it the last 3 years, step back and unfortunately miss out. So teams like Utah and LA will be in the mix. I think they'll be in the mix very late, but unfortunately fall a little bit short. Like I said, we've seen Edmonton, Colorado, Nashville all have really slow starts to the season, and I do think that they will get things turned around. They are all incredibly talented. In the case of Colorado, they're going to get Nichushkin back. I think I can see them making a trade for maybe sorting out the goaltending. Like there's some stuff there that Colorado is going to have coming forward that will help them. Like Jonathan Drouin's only played 1 game, so between Nichushkin and Drouin getting back soon, if Landeskog does come back, or if they determine he's not and they use that space on another player, anyways, I can see the Avalanche getting in. So ultimately, those are your 8 teams in the Western Conference: Dallas, Winnipeg, Nashville, Colorado, Minnesota, Edmonton, Vancouver, Vegas. So that sets up your first round matchups of Dallas against Minnesota. I think Dallas will take top spot. Minnesota will be wild card 2. Winnipeg will then play Nashville in the 2 versus 3 spot in the Central Division. And then, of course, that sets up Edmonton, being the division winner in the Pacific, will play wildcard 1, which will be the Avalanche. So Oilers and Avs, so McKinnon against McDavid. I think that would be a very interesting matchup, which leaves the 2-3 spot in the Pacific of Vancouver versus Vegas, which again, another interesting matchup there as well. So those are your 4 matchups I think we're going to see here in the first round. Now, before we go any deeper than that, I'm going to jump over to the Eastern Conference, give my early thoughts there and how things will play out, and then we'll discuss the later rounds. So in the Eastern Conference, I do think, like I said before with my opening predictions, and I'm sticking with it so far, is we're going to see 5 teams from the Atlantic, 3 from the Metro. So in the Metro division, unfortunately, I think teams like Washington, Pittsburgh, and the Islanders will all be in the mix and playing meaningful games on the stretch, but unfortunately are going to fall a little bit short. Columbus and Philly will be out a little bit sooner, and the 3 teams that's left, no big surprise, the New York Rangers, New Jersey Devils, and the Carolina Hurricanes. I do think the Hurricanes might be a little bit weaker this year. I think the Rangers and Devils are the class of that division, but ultimately I think they'll only get the 3 teams in. I know Washington's had a decent start. Just not real confident they're going to be able to keep that up on a long-term basis. Pittsburgh and the Islanders have only been so-so. The Islanders have proven again they have trouble scoring. Pittsburgh's got trouble in multiple areas, and I just don't have a lot of confidence they can get in. So that leaves the 5 Atlantic teams. Unfortunately, we're not going to see big progress, at least as far as getting into the playoffs goes, from Montreal, Detroit, and Buffalo. But I do have the 5 teams predicting going in would be Florida. I think Florida will ultimately win the division. They have proven last year to be the Stanley Cup champions. I still think they're the class of that division. The Toronto Maple Leafs I have as number 2. I think the Leafs will be right down to the wire for the division lead with the Panthers, but ultimately come in second place. And then your 3, 4, 5 is going to be really, really close, and it wouldn't be surprising to me if any of these teams kind of flip-flopped. But I have Boston, Tampa, and Ottawa. Now, right now, Boston and Tampa have had their kind of up and down start. Boston, some say that they don't quite look themselves. And you know what? Maybe it's the year that Boston takes a step back, but it's really tough to bet against them. I think they will get things figured out and gain some consistency. Tampa had a hot start, then a few not so good games, and they kind of bounced back. I think we're going to kind of see that throughout the season. And at the end of the day, I wouldn't be shocked if they end up in a wild card spot. But I think that's kind of where they sit. And right now, the Senators sit as 4-2. I think it's too early to say they're going to jump higher to go into the top 3. But if they can continue that, and they've done that largely without Linus Ullmark. Ullmark only played in the first 2 games. They've managed a 4-2 record with Forsberg playing in 4 of the 6 games. So at the end of the day, I think they look a lot better this year so far. It's early. Yes, but you know what? I think they can at least nail down a wild card spot. So that sets up your Eastern Conference matchups of Florida, Boston, Toronto being 1, 2, 3 in the Atlantic, Rangers, Devils, Canes 1, 2, 3 in the Metro, Tampa and Ottawa being your wild card teams. So I have the New York Rangers being the team that will be the tops in the East, and Florida will take the number 2 seed. So that sets up the New York Rangers against wildcard 2, which will be your Senators. So Rangers versus Ottawa. Then we've got Florida as the number 2 seed Atlantic winner against the wildcard 1 seed, which is Tampa. So again, we get the Battle of Florida between the Lightning and Panthers. Again, that also sets up Toronto and Boston yet again. And then, of course, the Devils versus Canes. So that is going to give us some interesting matchups, some that we've seen before. We get some new ones, a good mixture. Florida, Tampa, Boston, Toronto, we've seen many times, but maybe we'll get some different results this year. So those are your 4 matchups. So now we need to go into who's going to win in round 1 and subsequently the later rounds. So heading back to the West, like I said, we've got Dallas against Minnesota, Winnipeg versus Nashville, Edmonton against Colorado, Vancouver against Vegas. I think Dallas is going to be too good for Minnesota to overcome. I think they're going to do well to get into the playoffs here. Ultimately, Dallas takes that series. Maybe it's closer than we think, but I can see them winning in at most 6, if not 5 games. Winnipeg against Nashville is going to be an interesting one. If this comes to be right now, you'd probably pick the Jets based on their hot start and the Preds' cold start. But Winnipeg has proven lately that they have trouble getting the job done in the playoffs, and I think Nashville is going to be a team, even though Winnipeg's had the hot start, Nashville I think is going to be a team that gets better as the season goes and will be more dangerous late in the year. And I think we'll have a lot of people talking that, geez, I know they started slow, but they're a team I wouldn't want to run into in the playoffs. And ultimately, as much as I like to see another Canadian team go deep into the second or third round, I think the Predators are going to take that series. Edmonton against Colorado, we've got McDavid versus McKinnon. Ultimately, the Oilers are the much deeper team. The Avalanche are going to have an up-and-down season, of course, not as deep as they used to be. Goaltending questionable probably on both sides to some degree as well. But ultimately, the Oilers will break through and beat the Avalanche. And then Vancouver versus Vegas. Again, Vancouver won a round last year. But to me, right now, the big concern is Elias Pettersson. Meaning, right now, based on how the second half of last year went and how this year started, I think they need more from him. And I think Vegas is going to be a team that's going to continuously get better this year, and they always seem to be a team that adds. So again, another team I would not want to run into early in the playoffs. I can see Vegas taking out the Canucks. Setting up round 2, that's Dallas against Nashville, Edmonton against Vegas. So then that sets up some very intriguing round 2 matchups. Dallas and Nashville. Ultimately, as much as Nashville is going to be getting better as the year goes on, win a round, I think they'll fall short to the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars came really close to winning the West last year, and I think they're going to make it back to the conference final again. They have the goaltending, they have the defense, they have the offense to get the youth as well as the veteran players. I really like that team. And I really think that Nashville is not going to be able to take them down. I do think Nashville will give them a good go, though, and probably see a 6-7 game series. But ultimately, the Dallas Stars, to me, come out on top. Edmonton against Vegas. I am, again, going to pick the Oilers. I think we're going to have a rematch of the Western Conference Final of Edmonton against Dallas. Edmonton, again, they've proven last year they can be a deep team. These guys know how to win in the playoffs. They're battle-tested. I know the regular season hasn't been the greatest of them to start so far, but again, another team is going to get better as the year goes on. They will get back to Zach Hyman producing. They will get back to that third line of Henrique, Brown, Janmark being absolutely shut down when it comes to killing other teams' power plays and things like that. So to me, I think we're going to end up Dallas against Edmonton, and once again, the Oilers are going to win the West. I've predicted it again. I said it last year. The Oilers are winning the Cup. They did not do it. They came really close. We've seen numerous times in recent years where a team has gone back-to-back. They make it once. They learn how to win, and they get it done later. So I think Edmonton will get that job done and go back to the Stanley Cup final. Now, going through the Eastern matchups, we've got, like I said, Florida against Tampa, Toronto, Boston, and then Ottawa crosses over to the Metro against the Rangers, Devils, Canes. So as much as it's a great story to see the Ottawa Senators improve, get into the playoffs, I think they'd have a really tough time with Igor Shesterkin and the New York Rangers. I do think the Rangers will take that series fairly handily, but it'd be a great experience for Ottawa to take that step, that progress, and get the playoff experience. They'll come back next year even hungrier and have a better chance to not only get in, but to do some damage. You've got the Devils and Canes. I think New Jersey is going to be really tough to beat. Carolina, to me, is not quite as strong as they used to be. And at the end of the day, I think New Jersey will be, along with the Rangers, really, really tough for Carolina to get past this year. So I do have the Hurricanes making a first-round exit as well. Setting up a Rangers-Devils round 2 series. The Panthers and the Lightning, again, I think the Panthers will once again take the Lightning down. I don't know that the Lightning are... Vasilevsky doesn't seem to be quite as Vasilevsky like he used to be. They're not quite as deep as they used to be. Different look. They're still a good team. I don't think they're anywhere as deep as Florida, though, and I think the Panthers win that series. Toronto-Boston is going to be the one to watch. Is this the year that Toronto kind of, slays the dragon, so to speak? They've gotten over the hump. They won a series a couple of years ago against Tampa. They get past that first round, I don't know what you want to call it, curse or whatnot, but they haven't done it against the Bruins, and they took a step back last year. But ultimately, I think that right now, with under new head coach Craig Berube, they're going to play a different style. He'll be on them and teaching them how do they have to win in the playoffs. Boston seems to be, right now, like I said, not quite that same team. And I think this is the year that they'll conquer those demons and get past the Bruins. Setting up a Toronto-Florida second-round series, Rangers-Devils second-round series. Toronto versus Florida, again, I think Florida is still just as good, maybe not quite, but pretty close to last year, and I don't think the Leafs can go through 2 series. So ultimately here I do have the Panthers winning round 2 against Toronto. I think they'll have the advantage in goal. Obviously, Stolarz and Wall are good goalies, and I wouldn't be surprised if Stolarz is the opening night Game 1 playoff goalie for the Leafs. He's been good so far. But again, I think scoring is going to be proven to be a challenge. There's no room out there. It's a style. and the tough defensive play for the Leafs is going to be, or from the Panthers, is going to shut Toronto down. Rangers Devils, ultimately, I think the Rangers are going to be able to get past New Jersey. It's going to be a long, hard-fought series, that's for sure. The Devils are definitely a different team, definitely a lot better than they were last year for sure. But the Rangers, after being the top regular season team, just seems like a team of destiny this year to win this conference. So I am predicting that ultimately we're going to get back to the Rangers against the Panthers for the Eastern Conference Championship. Florida is going to run out of steam, though, after winning the Cup last year, going to the finals the year before that, getting into a couple of rounds this year. I think the team is just going to end up probably decimated with injuries and be just exhausted. And I do think that the Rangers will ultimately get past them here. So I'm going to predict the New York Rangers, Edmonton Oilers Stanley Cup final. Of course, these two teams have a lot of connections over the years with a lot of the game's greatest players and managers. Lots of history here. But ultimately, Connor McDavid will get his Stanley Cup this year. His team will dig in as he yells at them in the Amazon series from last year, and they will ultimately find a way to get it done. As I said, it's really early. Some of these predictions may seem way off. Some of them might seem pretty accurate. Some of them might seem even comical at times, but it's just for fun. These are my thoughts, my opinions, based on the whole long season. You got to remember, it's a long season. A lot can change. A lot can happen. A lot of these teams are going to have injuries. A lot of these teams are going to make trades and different things that we can't predict right now. So this is, like I said, it's an early version of my way of the playoff predictions. I usually about every 4 to 6, 7 weeks I'll do an updated version of this based on how things look at that given time. So let me know what you think in the comments. We'll discuss further. Who's your Stanley Cup winner? Which teams are making it this year? Let me know your predictions in the comments so we can discuss it as a community. Thanks very much for watching. I will catch you next time.